Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome back for our next episode of Toy Box Tutorials. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about sidekicks and some of the sidekick toys that we have not covered yet. My original intent when I first planned this tutorial back at the start of this year was to actually spend several episodes talking about sidekicks. But then I found the official developer tutorials, including the ones on sidekicks, and I have since posted those on the Disney Infinity Archive project. I'll put a link to those videos in the upper right corner of my video here and in the video description. And if you want to know all there is to know about sidekicks, I highly recommend that you watch those tutorials because they're pretty good. They talk about how to use the sidekick menu, the different sidekick stats and what they mean, how to level up your sidekicks, how to use sidekick gear, how to do farming, and so much more. So I'm not going to cover all of that material again here today. Instead, I want to focus on some things that were not covered in those tutorials, like the various sidekick toys and what you can do with them besides fighting and farming and building. I don't want my sidekick to just be an annoying townsperson who tags along, okay? I want my sidekick to be my partner. I want him to have a reason for being here in the toy box with me. And there's a lot you can do with sidekicks to make them an integral part of your toy box adventure. And the way you do that is to use the sidekick toys. So let's take a look at these things. And there are a bunch of them. I've dropped them out here ahead of time. These are all of the sidekick toys that are available in Disney Infinity 3.0. And these are all toys that interact with your sidekicks. All of these toys can be found in the Gameplay Toys drawer. So first up we have Sidekick Managers. And there's 3 of them. There's the generic one, there's the one from Escape the Kiln, and the one from Brave Forest Siege. And I've laid out all 3 there. And all 3 of them work exactly the same way. Basically they open up your sidekick menu and allow you to summon sidekicks, equip them, and level them up. And the official developer tutorials talked about these, so I'm not going to cover them here, but I am going to place one in my toy box to let the player know they're going to need a sidekick. And this one best fits my theme, the one from Escape the Kiln. So I'm going to bring that over and place it right here. So right away when they start the adventure they're going to see that, probably come over and push it, and that'll open up the sidekick menu. And we won't need these, so I'll go ahead and delete them. Alright, next we have sidekick doors, and there are 5 of them that I found. I covered these toys way back in episode 29, and these allow you to toss a sidekick or a townsperson into them, and you can use that as an input to trigger different things to happen. Now for my toy box, I'm going to use several sidekick doors to disable the factory. Only my sidekick will be able to turn off the machinery for the factory. And the one that I'm going to use is this one from Escape the Kiln. These 2 are from Brave Forest Siege. This one from Stitch's Tropical Rescue. That one's from Assault on Asgard. So you have several different styles you can pick from. And the one that best fits my theme is the one from Escape the Kiln down here. Alright, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to place about 5 of these, I think, around my toy box. The first one is going to go on this little island right over here. And I've dropped some Creativitoys there that I'll cover in a moment. But we're going to place this one right here. That's the first one. The second one is going to go over here. And we're going to place this right next to this wall, right down at the same level as that lamp. And let me just double check that. I don't have a ledge here yet for the player to land on. We're probably going to be adding that next time. But let me just make sure, yeah, right at that level. Okay. The third one is going to go over here at this island. And I've actually already placed that during my build. So that's going to sit right here between those two lamps underneath the bridge. The fourth one will go over here between these two lamp posts on this island. And the final one is going to go up top, way over here. I probably could have put that down while I was over here earlier. But this will be the final one that the player will come to after they finish the final boss battle. That's going to sit right up here like that. Okay? And I'll come back to those in a moment. So we've looked at sidekick managers and sidekick doors. Next up we have sidekick turrets. And there's two of them. And these are enemy turrets that will attack you. But you can throw your sidekick into a hatchway at the base of the tournament. On this one, it's in the back. You can see it there. On this one, it's on either side. And when you throw your sidekick in there, he'll take over the turret and begin using it to blast your enemies. So that's pretty cool. And both of these are unlocked in the Toy Box Takeover expansion game. And I'm going to use this one. And for right now, let's place it over here on this first island. And we're going to put it about right there. Alright, next we have the Sidekick Cannon. This is also unlocked in Toy Box Takeover. And what this does, you throw your sidekick into it, or a townsperson, and it'll launch them some distance away from you. You see this toy used in the first level of Toy Box Takeover, where you shoot the sidekick and he ends up on the pirate ship and brings the pirate ship in to crash into the fort. So that's what this toy does. And we're going to use this for a sidekick puzzle that we're going to build in a little bit. This we're going to put right up here, positioned just like you see there. Because you'll notice there is no way to get across that gap. And we're going to set this up before we're done using the game maker to prohibit flying characters. So there'd be no way for the player to get over here. And so we're going to have to use the sidekick and let him do that part of the mission. Alright, the last sidekick toy that we have is the TNT Shack. And again, this is out of the Gameplay Toys drawer. And this is also unlocked out of Toy Box Takeover. And when you throw your sidekick into this, out will come a TNT barrel that you can use to throw at enemies, or you can shoot it and cause it to explode. And this is also unlocked in Toy Box Takeover, as I mentioned. And we'll put this over here, maybe about like that, I guess. Alright, since we're right here, let's go ahead and start with this. So first thing we're going to need is a sidekick. So let's go into our sidekick menu. Oops, up there at the top of the pause menu. And it doesn't matter which one we use. I will use the Mad Hatter. So we can pick him out, pick him up, toss him into that door. And out comes a barrel, which you can then pick up and throw and cause it to blow up. And you get some free sparks. Or you can also shoot it and it'll blow up where it is. So that's helpful to know. Get back here. So let me show that one more time because there's something interesting about that I want to point out. Alright, so you can pick this up, and instead of throwing it, you can drop it. And that doesn't do anything. Because your first thought would be you could just drop it and then put it where you want and shoot it. I don't know if that's a bug or if that was intended to be used that way originally. But as it stands right now, the only way you can shoot it to blow it up is that, which isn't too helpful. But that's the TNT shack, and that's a pretty handy, fun little toy to use. You'll notice there is a logic menu available. You can come into the properties. You can have the townsperson be removed on entry, so you throw them in there and this toy will automatically delete them. By default, this is off, which means once they throw out the TNT barrel, they'll come back out of the TNT shack. You can disable this door after use, so you can only use the shack once. By default, this is off. And activate door, I'm not exactly sure what that means. Let's see if we turn that off. Does that disable this so we can't use it? I forgot to look into that one before the video. Yeah, that disabled. Nope. Oh, yep. You still can't use it. So that's what that does. So we'll go ahead and leave it on so you can use it. You'll notice there's trigger signals available. So when the door is activated or deactivated, this will broadcast trigger signals that you can use, or when you throw a townsperson in. So if you wanted to play a sound effect or do something when this toy is activated, you can do that. There are also two behaviors with this that correspond to these trigger signals. So you can activate and deactivate the door with a logic signal, which basically does what this property does here. So that's how you would use that toy. I'm going to leave that there for right now. Now next, let's take a look over here. I'm not going to use this toy because you can see the official developer tutorial for that. Alright, so let's pick our sidekick up and let's go down and approach this turret. And actually, before we do that, let me throw a couple of enemies out here, just to make this kind of fun. Eventually I'm going to use a couple of enemy wave generators, but for right now, let's see, we'll just throw a couple of guys out here. Alright, we'll let them wander around. And we'll come back over here by our sidekick. Alright, and we'll pick him up. These guys are going to come and attack us, and so is that cannon in a moment, as you can see. But we can throw our sidekick in there, and now he'll take over the turret, and now he's shooting the enemies for us. So that is, to me, a really fun toy. I like the fact that the sidekick takes that thing over. And now when we wander far enough away from that, the sidekick should come out and follow us around again, and he does. Unfortunately, once he does, that cannon becomes active again, so he doesn't permanently disable it, which is kind of a shame. But that's a lot of fun. So if you haven't used this toy, this is a wonderful toy to add to your toy box. You'll notice there is a logic menu, and under the properties, you can assign this to a team. So you can have cannons that are associated with a specific team. So if you set up a team-based game where you've got players and enemies on two different sides, the turret will shoot, of course, enemies on other teams. And you can use your sidekick to take over the enemy's turret. And so that's really helpful. And you can also put this on a path, which really makes this interesting because then it can move back and forth, and you can do all kinds of fun things with it. Alright, so that's the Sidekick turret. Now, let's use the cannon because it may not be obvious what you can do with this. But my goal, what I want to do is set up a Sidekick puzzle, or a puzzle that only the Sidekick can solve. Alright? And this is what I mentioned at the end of my video last time that some of you were interested to see. So what I want to have happen, we have this little robot out here, and this is out of the platforming toys. You unlock the droid factory worker in the Twilight of the Republic playset. And what you may not know is this has a logic menu, and you can connect this to a path. And what I want to do is have this guy moving back and forth here between these two islands. And this is how we're going to get the player over to the next island. But by default, he is not going to be moving. And so we need our Sidekick to help us get this guy moving so we can proceed through the toy box. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick him up. And I've placed him not right next to the wall, but just off of it a little ways. And just to help us place our path, I'm going to spin him around and put him over here where I want him to be when he gets over to this point. And then we're going to come under the Creativitoys, and we're going to put our path right below him, centered right on him. You'll notice it initially started it right over directly underneath that guy, but we want it to start under this robot, this droid. And it didn't put us in point mode, so I want to delete that thing and try this again. Alright, so we're going to come out here. We're just going to build a loop. This next point is going to be about halfway between the two islands. Doesn't have to be precise. And there. Alright, so then we will adjust the path properties. We want this to be looped, and we want to turn off auto start objects when connected. Okay. I'm just making sure that is centered underneath the bounding box for my robot, for my droid. Okay, and as I look at this, this point is sticking out further this way. I want this to be a little bit more of a circular path. So we're going to bring this in a little bit. And that looks pretty good. Alright, at this point we can delete this one. And we're going to connect this guy with a new path connection to our path. Okay. And he's just sitting there. So this console here is what is going to activate that robot. And you'll notice this is just a decoration. I showed you that when I did the build exercise. It's not something the player actually interacts with, but it's something our Sidekick's going to be able to interact with. So what I want to have happen is we're going to use this Sidekick cannon to launch the Sidekick over the gap. And then I want the Sidekick to walk over here and activate the terminal. Okay? So if we come down out of the editor, we pick up our Sidekick and we throw him in. That shoots him over, and he immediately comes back here. So that isn't very helpful. You have to do a little bit more work to make this happen. If you throw a regular townsperson in there, I believe he will stay over there. And let me just test that. I think I remember it working that way, but now that I say that, I'm not sure. So there she is, and then she wanders around. So yeah, she'll stay over there, but because he's a sidekick, sidekicks basically want to try to stay near the player. If you get too far away from them, they'll teleport back near you, which doesn't help us for this puzzle. Let me go ahead and remove Maleficent here before she causes any trouble. Alright, so the first thing I want to do, let's take a look at this cannon a little bit. You'll notice there's a path connection, so we can put this on a path and have it move as well. And there's a property, and this is the launch distance. You'll notice he didn't quite make the gap. He came up a little short, but it moved him over and put him on top of that before he came back and teleported. So we're going to increase that by 4. You'll notice this increments in increments of 4. Those are 4 distance units, which basically make up a terrain cube. So he landed about here. This will give him enough distance to put him out over here. So that will solve kind of the first problem, where he didn't seem to quite make the whole distance. And you'll see that time he did. So that's good. Now, how do we get him to stay over there? Well, for that, we are going to use another creativity that we've already looked at in this series. And that is, oops, went the wrong way, the marching orders. This works for enemies. This also works for townspeople. And yeah, we're going to place this kind of centered on that walkway and right there. So when the townsperson enters the marching orders, he should walk in the direction indicated by those arrows. And there he goes. So that is perfect. And then he reaches the terminal, and he's over there until he teleports back over here. Which, now that I'm looking around, I don't see where he teleported. I don't know where he is. That was kind of weird. Alright, so far so good. Now let's set up a trigger area over top of this, so that when our sidekick gets over here... Oh, I see. He's stuck on the back side. I did notice this. That's a weird little bug that I noticed when I was building this originally. Okay, so we're going to create a little trigger area here. And what I want to do is use the trigger area then to start our path over there. So once the townsperson reaches the console, he'll activate that. So we'll do a new logic connection when entered by player. Or not by player, sorry. When entered by AI friend. That can work for a sidekick or a townsperson. We'll come over here. Trying to select the path. I accidentally select the droid. New logic connection when entered by AI friend. Try to make sure I select the path this time. There we go. That's such a pain. Alright, we're going to have it do a reset and play. Oh, I see what's happening. It's because this townsperson is entering and exiting that thing. Alright, so to fix this, I think what I can do, I think he's getting stuck back here is what's happening. Or maybe not. Oh, yeah. That crazy turret. All right, let's go ahead and take our sidekick out. That gets him out of the world, and we'll put a different one in. All right. But now that guy is moving. So let's hook up our level starter, first of all. So we need to adjust some properties too on this thing. Do a reset and stop. Okay. And I forgot to set the properties on the droid, because we want to orient along the path. Okay. The other thing I would like to do, just because we can probably run into that bug again, is on the path, a new logic connection. Once this is starting to be reset and played, let's come over and disable this trigger area. So that way that won't happen and that droid will keep moving. And that means our level starter should activate this so that we can have a way to reactivate that toy. All right, so there is our puzzle that only our sidekick can solve, okay? So let's see how it works. Throw him in, he goes across, he walks over to the terminal, the robot starts to move. And that is pretty cool. And I'm pretty sure our sidekick is stuck in that little problem again. And this is one of the bugs that I found, unfortunately. I'll go ahead and remove him from the world. We'll put Mad Hatter back in. Is when the sidekick becomes that far away, and you use the marching orders to keep him there, and he marches away, he can kind of get stuck. And I'm not sure exactly what happens, because it looks like he does stay right in front of that terminal for a little bit, but then somehow he teleports behind it and gets stuck in this dropping thing. And I'm not sure if it's because he's standing over on this block and I'm over on this block. Haven't figured out yet exactly what happens with that. But the way to get around it is just take your sidekick out of the world and put him back in. Alright, so there is our puzzle that only the sidekick can solve. Now for all of these sidekick doors that we're going to use, these are what's going to disable the factory. So we're going to set the properties on these. We're not going to remove the townsperson on entry. We are going to disable this door after use, so it can only be used once. Detection level will be 1. Normal response chance will take that to 10. And what we do here is a new logic connection. When the normal response is returned, we input into a logic AND. And we make that same connection and those same properties for all of the other 4 sidekick doors. So the player will need to throw the sidekick into each one by one as they go. And on the logic AND, a new logic connection, when complete, we'll come over to an action enforcer that I put down ahead of time and have all the players celebrate. And when this is complete, we'll go to a sound effect generator, and under the musical category, play Fanfare. And again, this is under the Gameplay Toys drawer. And we want to make sure we turn off 3D sound at speaker or locator. And eventually I'll hide all of these toys. So we have a sidekick who helps us battle and not just shoot, but he can take over turrets and use those for us so they're not shooting at us. And he can use those to shoot at the enemies. We have the sidekick cannon that we can use to launch the sidekick someplace and have him do something for us. We have the sidekick doors that will disable the machinery for our factory, and only the sidekick can turn the factory machinery off. We have the TNT shack over here, which is going to give us an explosive weapon that we can use for the mid-toy box boss battle here. And, yeah. So what we have here is an adventure with a sidekick who's not just along for the ride helping us battle enemies, but he's an integral part of the game. And I really like that. I don't want the sidekick to just feel like a tack-on. He has to have a purpose for being here. And so this is going to help us do that. These sidekick toys are a great way to make your sidekick useful. But that's all I wanted to cover about sidekicks and sidekick toys. Between these examples and some other videos that I have, which you may want to go look at, go back and look at tutorial episode 29. If you want some more examples, you can look at Random Dungeons, episodes 16 through 19 in that series. You can look at my Aladdin playthrough, episodes 2 and 18, and those will give you some great ideas for other things you can do with sidekicks. But with those videos and with these tutorials, you should have everything you need in order to do some fun and interesting things with your sidekicks. Next time, we're going to look at some of the Droid Factory toys that you can unlock in Twilight of the Republic. And we're going to start building our first obstacle course in this toy box. You might be surprised by some of the things you can do with these toys. So be sure to come back next week for that. Or better yet, subscribe to my channel so you won't miss the next episode when it airs. And if today's video was helpful for you, be sure to leave a comment before you go to let me know. I would appreciate that. Thank you for watching and have a great weekend.